Hey there, fellow history enthusiasts. We spend a lot of time talking about the big stuff, the wars, the revolutions, the famous figures. But what about the footnotes, the weird, wild, and often wacky events that don't always make it into the textbooks? Today we're diving deep into the lesser-known corners of history to uncover 10 bizarre events that might just make you question everything you thought you knew about the past. These are the stories that might not have changed the course of empires, but they offer a glimpse into the often absurd, always fascinating tapestry of human experience. Get ready to have your minds blown, because we're about to embark on a wild ride through history's most unexpected twists and turns. Picture this. 1932, Western Australia. Farmers are facing an ecological crisis, an emu infestation. These weren't your average backyard birds, though. We're talking 20,000 strong, wreaking havoc on crops. The solution? Call in the army, of course. Armed with Lewis machine guns, the military embarked on a campaign to cull the emu population. What could possibly go wrong? Well, for starters, emus can't fly, but they can run really fast and dodge bullets. The soldiers quickly learned that emus weren't exactly sitting ducks. After several weeks of embarrassing defeats, the Australian government withdrew its troops, conceding defeat to their feathered foes. Fast forward to 1518, Strasbourg, France. A different kind of chaos is afoot, a dancing plague. It began with a woman named Frau Trophea, who suddenly took to the streets in a frenzy of uncontrollable dancing. Soon, others joined her, caught in the grip of this bizarre affliction. Within weeks, hundreds of people were dancing day and night, unable to stop, their bodies driven by some unknown force. Physicians were baffled. Was it a curse? A religious mania? Theories abounded, but the dancing continued. Modern theories suggest mass psychogenic illness, perhaps triggered by stress, famine, or even ergot poisoning from contaminated rye bread. Whatever the cause, it's a stark reminder that sometimes the human mind itself can be the source of the most bizarre and terrifying epidemics. Let's hop across the pond to Boston, 1919. It's a chilly January day and the air is thick with anticipation. Not for a parade or a sporting event, but for the arrival of a massive tank filled with molasses. You see, molasses was a key ingredient in rum production, and this tank held a staggering 2.3 million gallons of the sticky sweet stuff. Without warning, the tank ruptured, unleashing a wave of molasses that surged through the streets of Boston's North End at a speed of 35 miles per hour. Buildings were ripped from their foundations. People were swept away, trapped in the viscous tide. The aftermath was devastating. 21 people lost their lives and over 150 were injured. The cleanup took weeks, the streets sticky for months with the residue of the disaster. The Great Molasses Flood serves as a sobering reminder that even the most seemingly innocuous substances can have deadly consequences when engineering goes wrong. Chapter 4: The Tanganyika Laughter Epidemic, when giggles became contagious. We're traveling to 1962, Tanzania, for our next stop on this bizarre history tour. Imagine a schoolyard where laughter isn't just common, it's uncontrollable. That's what happened in the village of Kashasha when a fit of giggles among a few schoolgirls escalated into a full-blown epidemic of laughter. Hundreds of students were soon caught in the throes of this bizarre contagion, laughing uncontrollably for hours, sometimes days on end. The school had to be shut down, and the strange phenomenon spread to neighboring villages. Experts believe it was a case of mass psychogenic illness, also known as mass hysteria. The Tanganyika Laughter Epidemic is a fascinating example of how social and psychological factors can manifest in unexpected and often bizarre physical and emotional responses. Chapter 5: The Battle of Karánsebes, history's greatest cell phone. Hold on to your hats, folks, because this next story is a doozy. It's 1788 and the mighty Austrian army is on edge. They're in the midst of a war with the Ottoman Empire, camped out near the town of Karánsebes in modern-day Romania. Tensions are high and everyone is on the lookout for the enemy. But on this particular night, the real enemy wasn't the Ottomans, it was confusion. It all started with a group of Austrian soldiers looking for a drink. They stumbled upon a group of Romani people selling schnapps, strong stuff. A few drinks turned into a party, and soon other soldiers joined in the revelry. The commotion attracted other soldiers who, drunken brawl for an Ottoman attack, started firing their muskets. By the time the dust settled and the schnapps wore off, the Austrians had suffered thousands of casualties, all at the hands of their own troops. Chapter 6. The Great Tea Race of 1866. A caffeine-fueled dash for glory. Get ready for a high-seas adventure because we're setting sail in 1866 for the Great Tea Race. This wasn't just any race. This was a competition for bragging rights, profits, and the freshest tea the world had ever tasted. The goal to be the first ship to bring back the newly harvested tea leaves from China to a thirsty British public. The contenders, a fleet of sleek, fast clipper ships, each captained by a daring and ambitious skipper. The stakes, a hefty bonus for the winning captain and crew, and the prestige of delivering the first tea of the season. The race was a nail-biter from start to finish. In the end, it was a photo finish with the Taiping and the Ariel arriving in London within hours of each other. The Great Tea Race wasn't just about tea, it was a testament to human ingenuity, ambition, and perhaps a touch of obsession. Chapter 7. The Boston Corbett Incident. The eccentric life and demise of Lincoln's assassin's assassin. Our next story takes us back to the United States, but this time it's a tale shrouded in darkness. We all know the story of Abraham Lincoln's assassination, but what about the man who killed the assassin? His name was Boston Corbett, a former hatmaker and Union soldier. Corbett shot John Wilkes Booth, claiming divine instructions. Hailed as a hero, his mental state deteriorated. In 1888, Corbett disappeared, his fate a mystery. Get ready for a tale of babies, inheritances, and a whole lot of legal wrangling because we're headed to Canada for the Great Stork Derby. It all started with Charles Vance Miller, a wealthy lawyer and notorious prankster. Upon his death in 1926, Miller bequeathed the bulk of his fortune to whichever Toronto woman could produce the most babies within 10 years of his death. The will sparked a frenzy. Was it a joke, a social experiment? Whatever Miller's intentions, Toronto went baby crazy. Families raced against the clock, hoping to secure the fortune. The newspapers had a field day, chronicling the lives of the stork race contenders. When the deadline finally arrived, the prize was divided amongst 4 families who each had 9 children. A tie. The Great Stork Derby is a bizarre and fascinating example of how one man's eccentric will captivated a nation and sparked a baby boom. Our penultimate takes us into the realm of cultural clashes and diplomatic faux pas. It's 1907 and Korea is under Japanese rule. The Korean practice of consuming dog meat is deeply ingrained in their culture, but it's a practice that the Japanese and many Westerners find abhorrent. The Japanese, in an attempt to assert their dominance and civilize the Korean people, outlawed the consumption of dog meat. This ban, however, backfired spectacularly. Rather than being seen as a benevolent act, it was perceived as a direct attack on Korean culture and identity. The dog meat ban became a symbol of Japanese oppression, fueling anti-Japanese sentiment and resistance. The dog meat diplomacy incident reminds us that culture is complex and nuanced. Our final stop on this historical roller coaster takes us back to 1835 and the era of sensationalized news. Imagine picking up your morning paper and reading about bat-like humanoids building temples on the moon. That's what happened when the New York Sun published articles claiming to have discovered life on the moon. The articles, supposedly based on Sir John Herschel's observations, described a lunar landscape with fantastical creatures. The public ate it up. The Sun's circulation skyrocketed, but it was all a hoax. The articles were a fabrication to sell newspapers. The Great Moon Hoax shows the power of media and the allure of the unknown. It's a reminder to be critical of sensationalized headlines. Well, there you have it, folks. 10 bizarre historical events that prove truth really is stranger than fiction. From emu warfare to dancing plagues, these stories remind us that the past is full of surprises, and that even the seemingly insignificant events can teach us valuable lessons about human nature, the power of belief, and the importance of understanding different cultures. Did any of these stories surprise you? Do you have any bizarre historical tales up your sleeve? Share your thoughts and discoveries in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey into the weird and wonderful world of history, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating historical content.